When is student failure my fault rather than his? And it was easy, an easy answer, but I didn't like it. The answer is always. And if the answer is always, because I'm the one in charge. I'm the one who has the option of choosing where to start, what examples to use, what vocabulary to use. And if he's not learning, I need to make sure that I have done everything. Because if he doesn't learn, it's not his fault. It would only be his fault if he were choosing the examples. And if he chose bad examples, then he didn't learn it because of his choice. So as long as I'm in charge, as long as I'm responsible, as long as I'm calling the shots and giving the tests and marking the test and deciding how much review to do on the test, then it's my fault. Now, when I suggested this as a topic for dealing in a course one time of when is student failure the teacher's fault, they thought that was very negative and they wouldn't let me use it. And I got to looking at it. While I didn't think it was negative, I thought, well, maybe so. So I'll soften it a little bit. And what I learned to do is use a medical model. Now, the medical model I chose is the kind where when the doctor comes to you and says to you of your relative, we did all we could for him, but we lost him. Now, if you really believe that that doctor had done everything he possibly could, then you could accept it. However painful it is to have your relative die, you knew they did everything, and you even thank the doctor. Thank you, Doc, I appreciate what you did. But what if that doctor had not done everything he could? What if he had failed to check or diagnose or consult? What if he had failed to use some of the more modern techniques? Boy, you talk about mad. You talk about a lawsuit. Well, that's the way I looked at myself, the medical model. When is student failure the teacher's fault? The answer is easy. When a teacher has failed to do everything you could reasonably expect a professional to have done. If a teacher has done everything you could expect him to do, then and the kid fails, then let's examine his head or his mother or whatever you want to examine. But until then, it is the teacher's fault. And so when is student failure the teacher's fault? Well, we may quibble a little bit over what's reasonable and what's expected, but basically there are some things that you must have done as a teacher before you can go flunking a kid. So all I did is I put down what I think I ought to do if I am going to be a teacher and if I am going to be responsible for kids' learning. So let me give you a few of them that I put down for myself. I'm not asking you to do it or for them to be yours, but there are some things that I doggone well know I should have done, and if I haven't done them, then it is I who have failed. Now, when is student failure the teacher's fault? Number one, that was easy for me. When a teacher fails to use encouragement. You see, we know that kids learn from encouragement. They don't learn by being criticized. They learn from encouragement. When a kid first starts to walk, you don't criticize him and say, you need some more practice, you're not doing well. No, you don't. You go, hey, look, he walked. Well, almost. He's going to take, what? Come here. Whoa. See, we use encouragement. And see, I realized that. I was at home more than my wife was at the time my older daughter was ready to be potty trained. And see, when I found out that it is possible to get a kid to go in the pot instead of the pants, man, you talk about a fast learner. I am a potty trainer par excellence, man. Because now, and you don't do it by saying, you sit on that pot till you go. And you don't say, well, you wet those pants or you stand in them for a while and maybe next time you remember to go to, oh, you don't do that. No, sir. The first time my daughter went in the pot, we had a celebration. I mean, we danced around the pot. I invited the neighbors in. They didn't come, but I mean, we're going to do a dance around. We saved it till her mother got home. I mean, we use encouragement. And here's what I'm saying to you. That when is student failure the teacher's fault? When a teacher fails to encourage every kid. You show me a kid that wasn't encouraged and I'll show you teacher failure. I'm talking every kid. And isn't it funny that I have had teachers say to me, well, you can't encourage that kid, he doesn't do anything. Well, I got a whole class of them, no, none of them in the class do anything. Can't encourage that kind of behavior, can you? Of all the kids who need some encouragement, it's the kids that don't have much to encourage. The kids who most need some love are the most unlovable. We've got to, number one, you encourage every kid. Number two, lots of encouragement. See, not just very good. See? You've got to have lots of encouragement. And number three, lots of kinds of encouragement. Because we professionals know that some kids really respond to public acknowledgement. Other kids are embarrassed by public acknowledgement. Some kids like the huggy, kissy, touchy stuff. Other kids don't want to be touched. Some of you can challenge them and say, from now on, you come in here, and they'll respond. Others, it will turn them off, and you'll never get anything out of them. You see, we have to be professional in it. Some kids respond magnificently to a letter sent to them at their home by mail. Others, you send it to their parents. Some parents get it, they'd whip their kid no matter what you said. Others would give a double encouragement. Some kids, you can slip a little note in their book so they find it accidentally sometime. And some kids, you can, oh, we know that. When a student failure, the teacher's fault. When a teacher fails to encourage every kid, use lots of encouragement, and use lots of kinds of encouragement. That, to me, is the least a professional would do. When a student failure, the teacher's fault. When a teacher fails to acknowledge, accept, or understand learning styles. We know kids have differing learning styles because every human being has differing learning styles. We could take the adult population. Some of them learn through their eyes, some of them better than they do their ears. Some learn through their ears, and some learn through touch or feel. And it's not a matter of there's something wrong or statistically you're in the minority or anything else. There is a significant number of human beings who are auditory or who are visual. And so what do you do? Teach the way you teach? Or do you teach in a way that accepts that there are learning styles? And it's not big deal stuff. And I'm not even suggesting you read a book on it or do those silly tests over it or anything else. I'm just saying that the least you would expect a professional to do is to acknowledge that there are various learning styles and then to accommodate those learning styles. See, before I understood anything about all this formal stuff that's written, I knew my first year teaching spelling. There's some kids you give them a spelling word and they close their eyes because they don't want to be distracted by their eyes, and they envision the word. They look for up letters and down letters. And they go appropriate. A-P-P-R-O. They're looking for it. See? Now, there are other kids, you give them a spelling word, they roll their eyes back. They're not trying to distract. They're trying to listen better. Appropriate. Appropriate. Pro. P-R-O. They're listening because they're auditory learners. And there are other kids, you give them the word, and they go, because they are tactile, kinesthetic type kids. Now, it's not a matter of whether it's good or bad. What matters is that if you don't have a multimodality approach to teaching, then you are failing some of the kids. Because some kids do not learn the way you teach. If you're an auditory teacher and they are not an auditory learner, we got problems. And it's not big deal stuff. By the way, one of the most interesting bits of research that I ever saw came when they took a school of K-6 students, and about 800 of them, and for one semester, every time a kid was sent from class because of disciplinary reasons, kicked out of class because he messed up, they checked the teacher in his or her teaching style in relation to the kid's learning style. And do you know what they found out? I know doggone well you do, because it is obvious to everybody without even doing research. 85% of all the kids kicked out of class that semester were tactile, kinesthetic kids in a room with an auditory teacher. The teacher saying, listen, I will explain it again. And the kid's back there, and he has had it. Can't stand that kind of thing in the classroom. When is student failure the teacher's fault? When a teacher fails to use a multimodality approach and accommodate all the different learning styles. It's not even big deal stuff. It's just while you're talking, which is of course your thing, then why don't you write on the board so the visual people can watch, and let the tactile people have wet spaghetti or a jumping rope or a coat hanger, or let them get up and act it out. In fact, I'll show you that's easier than that. Next time you're talking, why don't you let the tactile kids write at the board so the visual people can watch them?